Well, good evening, morning, good afternoon. I'm here once again in the Terang RSL sub-branches communication dugout. I'm going to talk about Lyla Stewart. She served during World War I as a nurse, served throughout the war for approximately 4 years. The decorations were the 1914-15 Star, the British War Medal, the War Medal, and she was also mentioned in Sir Douglas Haig's mentioned in dispatches. Lyla trained as a nurse for 3 years in Warrnambool Hospital prior to joining. So in mid-1915 she applied to serve in the Australian Army Nursing Service overseas. She was 29 but gave her age as 26. She was the first in the family to enlist, however her younger brother Campbell enlisting the following year. Lyla Stewart spent almost 4 years overseas on active service in Egypt between 1915 and 1916. And in France from 1916 to 1919, working in both Australian and British general hospitals. She returned to Australia, disembarking in Melbourne on the 18th of May 1919, and was discharged from the Australian Army Nursing Services on the 25th of July 1919. On Lyla's return, Lyla married Bill in Terang on the 6th of June 1921. Lyla gave her address as Terang and Bill gave his address as 257 Victoria Parade, East Melbourne, a place he had rented in the whole part from Henry Madison. His occupation was labourer, and her home duties, according to the Australian Electoral Roll. By 1934, the couple had moved to Point Nepean Road, Brighton, where they were still living when Lyla died in 1972. Fortunately, some of Lyla's experiences and thoughts on the war had survived. They appeared in the Terang Express and other local newspapers in the form of extracts from her letters and updates of her whereabouts provided by her mother and her sisters, which I'll read out now. Okay, this is the first of 3 or 4 letters which were published in the Terang Express and other local newspapers. So Terang Express dated the 5th of October 1915. Mrs. Stewart of Terang yesterday received a cablegram from her daughter, Nurse Lyla Stewart, stating that she had arrived safely in Cairo. Nurse Stewart is to take up duty at the No. 2 Australian General Hospital in Alexandria. The next letter Lyla's mother did receive was published in the Terang Express on the 7th of January 1916 on page 2. Mrs. J. Stewart of Terang has received from Nurse Lyla Stewart a letter dated from the Mena House Hospital in Egypt. The following are extracts. We have some hundreds of patients here. There are 45 wards, and I'm on ward 7. There are in the ward 2 orderlies, 2 Arabs, and another nurse besides myself, with a convalescent patient or 2 to help. All the patients who are allowed up come to the dressing room. I am there from 8 till 10. One feels as if one can't do enough for these soldiers. When one thinks of what they are doing for us and how they're being cut up and shot, nothing is a trouble to you. I have seen Australians being carried out on stretchers, almost cut to pieces, and asking for a cigarette when they are being lifted off. That's their spirit. There is a camp of Yeomanry out there, and we get crowds of medical cases from it. Jaundice, dysentery, typhoid, etc. There is some talk of this place being taken over by the English. I fancy there is some truth in that rumour, for there are a few English doctors walking around. If so, we will again be moved. I had a letter from Bobby Booth, who told me he and Claude Head had been to the Gaza twice to see me, and I was out. I could get home on a transport almost any time, but I have no wish to as yet. I wish you could see the place, with all the camels and the donkeys laden with water, pitchers, and the shepherds tending the big sheep with long tails. It reminds one so much of the old Bible pictures. Then there are different soldiers. It would do you good to see the Indians. There was also a crowd lined up here on Sunday. I've never seen anything equal to it. There must be something in the way of fighting on the Sunday crowds of soldiers left here during the night. I wish the war would end. I saw Jack Sadler from Calora one day, but had not a minute as I was getting onto a tram at 10 to 5 and had to be on duty by 5. I was very disappointed. The next letter, Terang Express, the 16th of May 1916. Miss Pearl Stewart of Terang has received a letter from her sister, Nurse Lyla Stewart, written on board the hospital ship Bremer Castle and dated March 25th. Nurse Stewart says, "We're on the sea once more, but don't know where we're bound for. The whole of the No. 2 General Hospital unit and equipment embarked at Alexandria. I was recalled to the unit in a great hurry. I think we're going to France. Everyone seems to be of the same opinion. Sister Hall was left behind. I was very sorry for that, but I have lots of other friends on board. There are more than 100 sisters on the vessel. It seems awful to think that the terrible slaughter is going to commence again, and I suppose we will land in Marseille. I will cable you when we do. It will be nice to be among our own boys again. I have not nursed a great many Australians for 4 months. All the patients have been Tommies, and taking them all around, they were not a bad lot. Cyril Reid is over here somewhere, but I have not seen him. Dr. Vic Hurley is also on board." So Sister Lyla Stewart and her fellow nurses did arrive in France, and they took up their duties in the hospital there. But on the 30th of September 1916, Lyla was actually mentioned in dispatches. And it reads here, "In recent dispatches, Nurse Lyla Stewart has been mentioned by Sir Douglas Haig for her devoted service at the Imperial Hospital at Boulogne. She is the daughter of Mrs. J. Stewart of Kelvin, Terang, and was trained at the Warrnambool Hospital, obtaining her certificate with distinction. There she held the position of acting sister. Nurse Stewart has been on active service for more than 12 months and was in Egypt at the time of the Gallipoli campaign. From Egypt she went to France with the Australian troops, but was quarantined for some time in Marseille, nursing a case of smallpox. Later she was transferred to one of the Imperial Hospitals at Boulogne, and there gained the recognition of the Commander-in-Chief of the British Forces. She expects shortly to rejoin her nursing unit at No. 2 Australian General Hospital." I did mention earlier that her brother, Campbell Stewart, did enlist some 12 months after Lyla had. So in the Terang Express on the 3rd of July 1917, it reads, "Staff Nurse Lyla Stewart, writing to a mother in Terang from the 14th Stationary Hospital in France on May 1st. Supports a statement and a cablegram of some weeks ago that her brother, Private Campbell Stewart, has died of wounds. She says, I wrote a few lines the other day telling you I had not heard anything of our dearest Campbell for some time. Yesterday evening the worst came. We shall never see him again. I feared the worst when he did not write, and knowing how severely the division had suffered, especially the battalion. I hoped he was taken prisoner, but no such luck. I had a letter from his OC, who said 2 of the Cam's mates saw him badly wounded before the first line of German trenches was reached. They feared he would not live to be brought in. Charlie Clifford is posted as missing, wounded and missing. Following Colonel Peck's letter, I received a letter from Mr. Rowland, who told me that D Company especially suffered, and they advanced unprotected by artillery and were left in the lurch by the tanks, which were cut off and most of them captured. I got a second letter from Mr. Rowland dated Anzac Day. In it he said that Cam was certainly killed and not taken prisoner, that he had hoped. My heart is just breaking. They saw people get over these things, but I shall never will. I kept on writing to him every second day and sent both him and Charlie a parcel, so they should have a change of underclothes and something nice to eat when they come out of the trenches. The brigade was sent over for 6 weeks, rest before they were put to task. I used to receive letters from Cam nearly every second day telling me the football matches, etc. He wrote most cheerful letters and never growled once, but all the same I know what the boys up the line were going through. I believe 2 months elapsed before we get the list of prisoners from the Germans, but I'm afraid Campbell's name will not be amongst the number. I've not heard anything from Will Primrose, Will Patterson, Dick O'Neill or Charlie Rutter, and I know Will Primrose and Charlie Rutter were killed in action, or any of those boys, but Colonel Peck is going to send me any news he may hear. I saw some days back where Campbell's officers were posted as missing, then I knew there was not a chance. The wounded used to tell me such tales. I asked one of the boys from the unit if he knew anything about All killed, he said. They went over 1,000 strong and 20 come out. Jesus. Each one had the same story. I think the reason Mr. Rowland did not write before was that he was trying to hear something definite. He is a good man. Very sad indeed. So in conclusion, Lyla did come home and she did marry, but she left her mates behind and her brother. And just by reading that letter, it does, it's very emotional, even just reading it, and it's well over 100 years ago. So I'll end there, and but as I said, sometimes, it's very hard reading this type of material and not sort of feel the effects. So with that, I'll close down, and I'll put this one together tonight and have it up hopefully the next day or so, but knowing me, it'll be up tonight. Alright, thanks for viewing, and yeah, look, as I said, the next video log I'll produce in another few days.